The Royal Watchman's Story, third document. The aftermath of the incident unfolded over the following hours with typical British efficiency, mixed with extraordinary circumstances that no one quite knew how to handle. Captain Reynolds had immediately cleared the courtyard and established a temporary command center in one of the castle's administrative offices. James found himself at the center of multiple debriefings, trying to explain how a 7-year-old American tourist had somehow prevented what could have been a tragic attack. Emma and her family were asked to remain at the castle while various officials tried to understand exactly what had happened. The little girl sat quietly in a comfortable chair, swinging her legs and clutching her stuffed rabbit. Seemingly unaware that she had become the focus of intense discussion among security professionals, castle administrators, and even representatives from London who had arrived by helicopter. The suspect, whose name was revealed to be Martin Henley, was a 42-year-old former castle maintenance worker who had been dismissed 18 months earlier for increasingly erratic behavior. Mental health professionals who examined him later determined that he had been suffering from a severe psychological break, exacerbated by financial troubles and social isolation following his job loss. What made the situation particularly complex was Henley's statement during questioning. He insisted that the little girl had somehow seen into his soul and helped him remember who he really was beneath his anger and confusion. He repeatedly asked if he could thank her personally for stopping him from doing something terrible. James found himself in the unusual position of having to explain not only the tactical aspects of the intervention, but also the psychological and intuitive elements that had made it possible. During his formal debriefing with castle security leadership, he was asked to describe in detail how Emma had first approached him and what had led him to take her warnings seriously. "In my military experience," James explained to the assembled officials, "I learned that survival often depends on recognizing information that comes from sources beyond conventional intelligence. Some people call it instinct, others call it intuition. Whatever name you give it, ignoring it can be fatal." Sir Richard Pemberton, the castle's head of security, listened intently. "And you're confident that this child's abilities are genuine?" "Sir, I've seen enough today to convince me that we encountered something we don't fully understand, but that we can't afford to dismiss. The accuracy of her initial description, her ability to predict the suspect's behavior, and most importantly, her success in diffusing the situation. These aren't things that can be explained away as coincidence." Meanwhile, in another part of the castle, Emma was having her own conversation with Dr. Elizabeth Morrison, a child psychologist who had been brought in to ensure that the events hadn't traumatized her. What Dr. Morrison discovered was quite different from what anyone had expected. "Emma," Dr. Morrison asked gently, "can you tell me how you knew that man was going to do something dangerous?" Emma tilted her head thoughtfully. "It's like, you know how sometimes you can feel when a storm is coming, even when the sky still looks okay? It's kind of like that, but for people's feelings instead of weather. And you've always been able to sense things like this?" "Since I was really little. My mom says I used to wake up crying right before earthquakes, even tiny ones that grown-ups couldn't feel. And I always know when someone is lying or when they're really sad, even if they're trying to look happy." Dr. Morrison made notes as Emma spoke, struck by the matter-of-fact way the child described abilities that most people would consider extraordinary. "When you decided to stand in front of that man today, weren't you scared?" Emma considered this seriously. "I was scared," she admitted. "But I was more scared of what would happen if I didn't do something. And I could feel that deep down he didn't really want to hurt anyone. He was just so confused and sad that he couldn't think of any other way to make the hurt stop." "That was very brave of you, Emma. But next time something like this happens, promise me you'll let the adults handle it, okay?" Emma nodded, but her expression suggested she was already thinking about the complexities of that promise. "I promise I'll try." But sometimes adults can't see what I can see. And if children are in danger, I don't think I can just stand there and watch." Dr. Morrison found herself both impressed and concerned by the child's mature understanding of moral responsibility. She made a mental note to recommend ongoing support for Emma's parents as they navigated raising a child with such unusual gifts. Later that afternoon, James was asked to escort the family to a private meeting with Sir Richard and other senior officials. As they walked through the castle's corridors, Emma looked up at him with a curious expression. "The feelings you get," she said quietly, "are they getting stronger since today?" James was startled by the question. She was right. Ever since the morning's events, he had been experiencing an unusually clear sense of the emotional states of everyone around him. It was as if his own intuitive abilities had been somehow enhanced by witnessing Emma's demonstration of what was possible. "Yes," he admitted. "How did you know?" "Sometimes when people like us work together, it makes both of us stronger," Emma explained. "My grandmother told me that before she died. She said that special abilities grow when they're used for good things, especially when they're used to protect other people." They arrived at the conference room where Sir Richard was waiting along with representatives from various government departments. Emma's parents looked nervous, clearly wondering if they were in some kind of trouble. "Please have a seat," Sir Richard began. "First, I want to express the gratitude of everyone here for what happened today. Your daughter's actions prevented what could have been a genuine tragedy." David shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "We're just glad no one was hurt. But we're also worried about Emma. This is a lot of attention for a 7-year-old. "We understand your concerns," Sir Richard replied. "That's actually why we wanted to speak with you privately. We'd like to discuss some options for ensuring Emma's well-being while also acknowledging the unique nature of her contributions today." Over the next hour, the officials outlined several proposals. The government was interested in understanding Emma's abilities better, both for scientific purposes and for potential applications in security and public safety. However, they also recognized the importance of protecting her childhood and ensuring she wasn't exploited or overwhelmed. The discussion led to an unusual arrangement. Emma's family would be provided with resources to help them understand and support her gifts, including access to researchers who studied similar phenomena. In return, they would occasionally consult with security services when particularly serious situations arose where conventional methods had failed. Most importantly, Emma would be allowed to be a child first and foremost. Any involvement in security matters would be strictly voluntary, age-appropriate, and designed to support rather than replace professional security measures. Emma listened to all of this with the same serious attention she had given to everything else that day. When the adults finished talking, she raised her small hand. "Can I ask a question?" she said. "Of course," Sir Richard replied. "What's going to happen to the man who was here today? Mr. Henley?" The adults exchanged glances. It was a question that demonstrated the depth of Emma's compassion and understanding. "Mr. Henley is going to get help," Sir Richard explained. "Doctors will work with him to understand why he was feeling so angry and confused, and they'll try to help him feel better." Emma nodded approvingly. "Good. I think if someone had helped him before, none of this would have happened. Maybe part of my job is to help people before they get so sad that they want to hurt others?" The room fell silent as everyone contemplated the implications of what the child had just suggested. The idea that her abilities might be used not just to prevent crises, but to identify people in need of help before they reached a breaking point was both intriguing and challenging. James found himself thinking about his own role as a royal guard. His job had always been to protect people from threats, but Emma was suggesting something more profound, the possibility of protecting people by addressing the root causes of those threats. As the meeting concluded and the family prepared to leave the castle, James walked with them to their car. Emma's parents thanked him repeatedly for taking their daughter's warnings seriously and for ensuring everyone's safety. "Officer James," Emma said as they reached the parking area, "will you keep using your special feelings to help people?" "I will," James promised. "Will you?" Emma smiled for the first time that day, a genuine, childlike smile that reminded everyone that beneath her extraordinary abilities, she was still a little girl who had just experienced something well beyond her years. "I will too," she said. "But next time, I'll try to find the grown-ups first." As the family drove away, James reflected on the events of the day. He had always known he was different, but he had never imagined that his intuitive abilities could be part of something larger, a network of individuals who could sense danger and respond to it in ways that conventional security measures might miss. Over the following months, James would find that his own abilities continued to develop. He began noticing patterns in crowd behavior that helped him identify potential problems before they escalated. He could sense when visitors were carrying emotional burdens that might lead to disruptive behavior. Most importantly, he learned to trust his instincts even more completely than he had before. The incident also led to subtle but significant changes in castle security protocols. While officials never officially acknowledged the role of psychic phenomena in their operations, they did implement new procedures that placed greater emphasis on behavioral observation and intuitive assessment by security personnel. Emma kept her promise to let adults handle dangerous situations, but she also continued to use her abilities in smaller ways. Her parents reported that she would sometimes warn them about unsafe drivers on the road or suggest they avoid certain areas that later proved to have had accidents or other problems. The connection between Emma and James persisted as well. Occasionally, when facing particularly challenging security situations, James would find himself thinking about the lessons he had learned from watching a 7-year-old girl face down an armed man with nothing but compassion and insight. The story of what happened that day at Windsor Castle was never officially reported in any detail. The public was told that alert security personnel had successfully apprehended an individual with mental health issues before anyone was harmed. The role of a young American tourist and the mysterious nature of how the threat was first identified remained classified information. But for those who were there, the event served as a powerful reminder that protection and security come in many forms, and that sometimes the most important qualification for keeping people safe isn't training or equipment. It's the ability to understand the human heart and respond to it with both strength and compassion. James continued his service as a Royal Guard for several more years before eventually transitioning to a role in threat assessment, where his unique combination of traditional security training and intuitive abilities proved invaluable. He never forgot the lesson Emma had taught him about the power of seeing beyond the surface of a situation to understand the deeper currents of human need and pain that often drive dangerous behavior. The little girl with the serious blue eyes had shown him that true security comes not just from stopping bad things from happening, but from recognizing and addressing the conditions that create those bad things in the first place. It was a lesson that would influence his approach to protection and service for the rest of his career.